Yeah, so if I know your time is very valuable, so thank you very much. And I want to get straight to the point, and you've already hinted. Yes, game rooms are a huge problem for the community. And as we are the Northside community, we've sort of pivoted to start helping small businesses a little more. And I know that's part of your campaign as well this year. And so it's very important for us to see what is happening in terms of the landscape, the business, the small business landscape. And we noticed that not only are game rooms a problem for families and for everyday working people. It's also a huge problem for small businesses and for areas that are trying to uh, grow and attract business because game rooms they sort of create a negative narrative in certain areas, specifically in the north side where there's a high concentration of them. And businesses do not want to open near those, for lack of a better word, establishments. And so that's a summary of what's happening right now. I don't know if Selena, you want to add something before we get a response about that.
Yes, basically for Northside, it's I would say for game rooms, it's a easy territory to be in because we see them everywhere. So whenever they do open new game rooms, I feel like in Northside it's just an easy access. Like, oh, no one's going to say anything. It's part of the norm. It's been like that through generations, how I've known it since growing up here. So I'm guessing, and this is just my theory, I'm just guessing like those game rooms are just, you know, attracted to areas like these.
So, Chris, if you don't mind, give them this is difficult for him to do because he's been doing this for how many years now, working
Lots
against
of
game rooms.
years.
Yes. And so give them a high level overview of what a hard fought battle this has been for the city of Fort Worth and you personally, so they kind of understand legally what we've tried to do to prevent this type of proliferation from happening. And then we can talk about some other tools as well.
Sure. So this actually goes way back to 2014. The city, and actually it was because the citizenry came forward and really demanded that the city do something about game rooms. And so we created a couple of ordinances. We went way out on a limb doing it, way beyond what any other city in Fort Worth had done. That was to regulate them. And then early in 2015, when they were to become effective, we got sued in three separate lawsuits, and we've actually been in litigation ever since. I'll tell you that we didn't fare very well in the district court and the first time around in the Court of Appeals because the plaintiffs, the game rooms, argued that we were preempted by state law from having the kind of ordinance that we had. Our argument was that the eight liners that are always in game rooms are unconstitutional or illegal machines because in Texas there has to be a constitutional amendment to allow gaming and gambling, and that hadn't happened. And so we appealed to the Texas Supreme Court. The Texas Supreme Court accepted the case, and we got a positive outcome there. But they sent the case back to the Court of Appeals for the determination of whether the gaming machines that we're talking about in this litigation, and by the way, they're all the same, are unconstitutional machines. And the Court of Appeals in Fort Worth said fairly recently, yes, they are. So that was good. Now the game rooms have sought review again at the Texas Supreme Court, and that's where the case is right now. We don't know whether or not the Texas Supreme Court is going to accept the case. And we finished briefing February 14th on Valentine's Day. So I would guess that we would know within about 4 months whether that's going to happen. If the court accepts the case, then we'll continue to litigate in the Texas Supreme Court and we'll have an outcome. If they don't, then the Court of Appeals decision will stand and we're good. Let me tell you one other thing. As we were litigating this, the district court and the Court of Appeals really took apart the ordinances that we created in 2014. So we noticed that there was a law on the books, a statute that allowed certain counties to regulate game rooms. And the regulations look very much like what we had in our ordinances. So we went down to Austin a couple of legislative sessions ago and got the law changed so that Tarrant County is added to that statute. And actually, since then, the statute has been opened up, so now it's available to all cities. So now we have regulations under the county. We worked with the county to create those regulations. And I will say, I know game rooms are bad. Believe me, I know they're bad. I know that they have what we call secondary effects on neighborhood crime that emanates from the game rooms. But these game room regulations from the county have gone a long way in allowing us to deal with game rooms when we know where they are. So under the game room regulations, and again, this is from state law, game rooms are defined as operations that have 6 or more gaming machines. So in other words, if you have only 5 or fewer gaming machines, you're not technically a game room, so you don't fall under the game room regulations.
And is that the state law?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yes, everything that you've mentioned so far, it sounds familiar because I read the Tarrant County game room regulations packet. I think it's available online. So it does ring a bell what you're mentioning. I think what we're trying to figure out, and Selena, this is part of your question as well, if I remember correctly, is how are game rooms able to open in some neighborhoods, and somehow there are neighborhoods in Fort Worth where they do not open because we know that there's either a strong neighborhood uh, association or connection to the city where they're simply not opening in certain neighborhoods. It seems like they're targeting, if I may be very direct, they're targeting communities of color. Northside would fall under that. And so there's a high concentration of them, and that's a fact. There is a high concentration. I'll give you an example. A specific example is Azle Avenue and West Long Avenue. There's at least 3 in that corner intersection, and according to regulations, they should not be able to open within several thousand feet of each other. Now that's of concern because that specific corner, we've done a lot of work throughout the years. I don't know if you're familiar with Comunidad 27. This is one of the neighborhood crime prevention groups that I helped to found back 7-8 years ago. And we've been very active. We even painted a huge, one of the most accessible public arts in North Texas is there in one of those game rooms. They actually took over it. And so, it's one of those things where we have a record of us being very vocal about doing work in the community to try and thwart the opening of these game rooms, but somehow they just have some sort of support where they are still opening in that specific community where we're combating them. And so that's why we wanted to bring that to your attention in case you were not aware of that is a big problem for the community. And like I said, we have the record of trying to stop this from happening. It's an ongoing battle.
Chris, let me ask a question. If a game room that is not technically a game room because it's less than 6 machines, what zoning classification are they under at that point?
Well, really, they can go anywhere, but ordinarily we find them in convenience stores in commercial districts, and Occasionally we find them in restaurants or bars, but most of the time, the ones that are a problem are in convenience stores.
So you see the problem, Arnaldo, is backing up and not knowing the type of establishment all of the ones you mentioned at Azle and Long would be. But a lot of the issue across the entire city, not just in Northside, is the willingness of a landlord, right, to work with an establishment, or it's the landlord that actually owns the business in the first place. As long as they're within City of Fort Worth zoning code, or they don't have to go through the CUP process or whatever it may be, that's where you're seeing that happen. And to your point, while you probably have not seen them in other strip centers, is it could be a multitude of factors. You could have rent rates would be too high. You don't have a willingness of a landlord to work with them. I don't know what the city has done holistically across entire communities to educate landlords at the risk of allowing someone to come in as a game room, what to watch for, what questions to ask. Do they have the right kind of lease language to allow them to terminate a lease quickly if someone does bring in gaming operations without their knowledge ahead of time, right? These are all things that outside of the litigation that Chris was describing that's going on to keep us from having them at all in the city of Fort Worth, which is what we'd love to be able to do. Short of that, what other mechanisms can we be working on? Melinda Ramos is not on the call today, who's one of Chris's colleagues, but she's one other that I'll loop in to make sure we've done everything we think so we can do exhaustively to work alongside, whether it's neighborhood associations, landlord tenant organizations, to make sure they understand what the risks are of allowing even one gaming machine in a convenience store and what that would mean for their local neighborhood.
Right.
But there's nothing that allows us legally to prevent them from doing it.
Yeah, I get that. To your point, so yeah, a lot of the businesses in that area, they're from out of neighborhood. They're out of neighborhood businesses, so they have no,
Right.
you know, perhaps attachment to our neighborhood like we residents do. And these are generations of business owners. So they own the land or they own the property and they live in another neighborhood. So it's easy for them to bring that into our neighborhoods. That's why we say it's a little bit of a targeting thing. I also know that the Tarrant County Sheriff, Sheriff Wayborn, is the person who can allow the permits of game rooms. And I don't know, is this correct? I saw that in the game room regulations.
Well, it is for the county, but we have an interlocal agreement. The city has an interlocal agreement with the county, so we administer permitting game rooms here at City Hall. And actually, I'll tell you that that's a long application process. And what we generally find is first of all, there aren't that many permitted game rooms. And the ones that are out there are really the best of the crop. We don't really have a lot of problems with them, as you might guess. It's the ones that pop up that we don't know about that are operating illegally. So, I work closely with code and police on this. I've jotted down these Azle Avenue and Long Avenue, and I'll work with our team to go out and inspect and figure out what's going on out there. But there are things that we can do even with convenience stores that have just a few gaming machines, not enough to be an outright game room. And frankly, one of the things that we do is we send undercover cops in, and if there is illegal gambling, and there almost always is, then that's a way that we can get them. So we just need to let your neighborhood leaders know that the city needs to know what your suspicions are and where you believe these gaming operations are happening, because we go check those out regularly.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. So to your point, we are escalating because we have reached out to our MPO. That was our first point of contact many years ago. Officer Guerrero is his name. And after that, it was escalated to his director, and they've shifted a little bit throughout the years. So we've been, I mean, we would feed the police department and almost the whole station would come out to the north side. And that was a great strategy for us to get the police to come. Because one of the problems that our community has faced over the years is that when we call the police department, they would just not show up. Um, and under the the typical problems that I think a lot of departments faces that are understaffed, and so they're kind of spread thin. So we understood that, and which is why it was important for us to get out there and do work ourselves as a community. And that's why we've been very proud of our work, and we still are. And we've escalated even after that when we didn't see the results that we wanted to our district councilman, Carlos Flores. And there's an interesting story there that I don't want to get too into, but I do want to say that Carlos Flores was involved in allowing a business to open up that he thought was a car wash. And what it ended up being was it was a game room fronting as a car wash. And so indirectly, somehow Carlos Flores sort of eased the process of this game room opening in Azle Avenue because he thought it was a car wash. And it did front as a car wash. I know this because I was there painting a mural at the time when the mariachi mural, which I mentioned earlier. And I was there all day, every day for several months. And I saw how the game room was installed. I could hear the honking, which was like code for communication. Um, with the installment of these game rooms. So I'm guessing it was an illegal one that's still there actually, and it's been documented that people have actually been shot there. So it's very surprising to us that nothing has been done, even though we have record of it being recorded. Um, we've been, bringing it up to all the authorities, and this is why we reached out to you, Mayor Mattie Parker, because we feel like we've gone through the escalation process of bringing it up to all of these different departments and people who should, be in the know, and we have not seen any. Actually, it's gotten worse, if I may be so blunt and direct.
And have you continued to make sure Councilmember Flores' office is aware that you're concerned about it getting worse?
Absolutely. I mean, what our approach is, I email Carlos Flores, our family members email Carlos Flores. We usually tag him when we have a public discussion about it in our community group, which now is up to close to 16,000 members. And he has chimed in with some of the legal, you know, process, which you guys have already mentioned to us. And so we hear a lot of the same sort of responses, but what we're not seeing is the perhaps the support that we'd like to see, because it's been almost a decade now since we started reporting this and getting involved in the community, planting trees. Or, we've tried our approach, potlucks with the police, uh, art interventions, national night outs, which were incredibly attended. We got hundreds of people out in the streets, and none of this has been able to address that problem. So we're really at a place where we don't know what's next. We're like, what can we do? We really need the support that we think your office, and we hope that your office can bring. We really do.
Go
Mulder,
ahead,
may I
Chris.
ask you a question? Real quick, where is there a cross street, the one that you're concerned about on Azle Avenue? What's it close to?
So the intersection is
You're
West
muted.
Long. Sorry, I thought I clicked it. It's
That's
West Long
okay.
Avenue and Azle Avenue.
Okay,
And
very
and
good.
like I said, you'll see La Piña Loca is a local business there. What used to be Franco's Market, it's
Mhm.
now rebranded as La Familia Discount. Um, and I'm in contact with the new tenant there. He was originally going to destroy part of the mural in order to open up a drive-through to sell alcohol and the things that these stores do. But, I made a little fuss about it publicly, and I think he saw the community's response. And so he messaged me and said he's not going to do that anymore. And he decided to move it to another part. But they have opened up game rooms well, machines. I don't know how many they're up to now. I think they started with 5. I think somebody told us, we got a hint from someone that works in the city. They told us that they actually applied and were in the process to being approved for a game room.
Okay.
Chris, do you know in the past legislative sessions if they have tried to prohibit the current statute, or change the current statute, which is 6 and up, is a game room less than, so I mean, why can't one gaming system be regulated the same way?
Well, no, there's not been I can't say that there's been a forceful effort to change that. Of course, under our 2014 ordinances, we said that one gaming machine was a game room. And if we win our litigation, then of course
we'll be, yeah.
Selena, I want to make sure that you are participating in the conversation. I'm sorry if I'm
Yes, no
taking
worries.
over.
I'll chime in whenever I have to. But I'm listening. I'm definitely listening.
So let us do this, a little bit of research with Chris's help on where we think our most problematic locations are, what police response has happened in the last 6 months. Do we have any pending permits that we need to be paying attention to? And then who the landlords are, importantly, that are allowing some of these businesses to come in. And just so you know, Arnaldo, unfortunately, this is not the only neighborhood that has asked for help in this work, and we've had to respond accordingly at different times. It ebbs and flows based on usually on the severity of the criminal activity. But there's a few other steps that we can take to provide additional information. Keep doing what you're doing. If you have anything happen in the meantime, send it to Carlos and to myself so that we're aware. And then we can circle back with you on what we think any kind of action might be helpful. This is frustrating, as you can tell, because you're dealing with people that are not truthful in the first place, and they're able to hide it pretty easily without, to Chris's point, a heavy sting operation that goes in. And that's a wonderful thing to do. But unfortunately, in the 12th largest city, sometimes you need those undercover cops working on human trafficking cases and drug cases that are very serious, predators the community as well. So to your point earlier, it is a resource issue, but it doesn't mean that this doesn't need to be focused on, because it does have these other systemic impacts on community.
Right. Yeah. And to your point, I just want to, I thank you for that, for listening to us and for considering us. I just want to make sure that we really are vocal about our efforts. I want to make sure that those efforts are seen when, I know you have a long list of communities that are battling the same battles, but I also am sure that our community in specific is one of those communities that has gone above and beyond in trying to address these issues where we can. So we really hope that you see that, and that we are put on a priority list, because I really do believe that we've gone above and beyond. And now, with the power of our storytelling with this magazine, we really hope to be able to add a new tool to our toolkit, and be able to tell the story and approach it from a different angle as well. So we hope that in the future you'll be able to be part of that narrative as well.
Have you met with leadership at Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the work that they're doing with Mainstream Area Northside?
Yes, so Annette Landeros, we've been in contact. She actually reached out. She's the CEO, and she let us know that she was going to reach out. I don't know who she reached out to find out how those game rooms, specifically that I mentioned to you in West Long Avenue and Hazel Avenue, how those game rooms are breaking the regulations, if any. And she reached out. So I know that she knows and she is involved and she's tried to address that. I just don't see, at least not yet, how that has affected the outcome.
Well, I think it's an important connection because of the work the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is leading with our Economic Development Department and the Main Street America program. And while it's not in that portion of Northside, it is important working alongside our small business community to protect them and allow them to flourish in North Side as residents there, as longtime business owners. And we hope, honestly, that the corridor work they're doing along North Main will translate into success, not just in that portion of North Side, but the entire community. Because, and this is a whole other topic we don't have time for today, but of course, with the successes of the historic stockyards, which we're all very proud of, we want to protect neighborhood and families that live there from gentrification, as well as the businesses that have long time been successful and allowed their families to flourish there, that in some ways feel at risk, in some ways from outside business pressures coming in. And that's why that program is so important to us to be successful. And I do think in many ways, the proliferation of game rooms in any neighborhood, especially North Side, is predatory on families that live there and businesses that live there. We've seen it firsthand in numerous occasions, and the stories are heart-wrenching about people that find themselves, you know, at a singular level addicted to those machines, and they're so accessible and very low regulation. Not to mention find themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time because of criminal activity that's happening there, or prohibiting additional wonderful businesses from being able to continue in a location and driving them away. Because to your point, you know, that Azle North Long Avenue is an example. Who else would want to build a business there if you've got 5 game rooms? You wouldn't. So it's impacting your success as a neighborhood to really drive progress. We understand that fully.
Great. Well, thank you. Selena, do you have any last questions or comments?
I guess what I can think about, because I know y'all expressed how y'all are working on your back end as far as the whole, you know, law process, and I really appreciate y'all doing that. I guess like for short term, just in the meantime, I think the best way to go about it is, I guess, contacting the landlords of the buildings, just to see like what, like you mentioned on the lease, like if it says anything about no game rooms, but but slot machines, like 8-liners. If it says anything like that, then we can target that just on the meantime, you know, so that way that can.
And to be clear, Selena, we'll do that. There's a few things we can do legally to send. Let us gather some information, like what kind of code violations we've had, what kind of criminal activity, who the landlords are, who's operating the game rooms, whether it could warrant, to Chris's point earlier, some type of undercover operation for a period of time. There's a few things we can do internally that are outside of our legal processes. We're waiting to see what the Texas Supreme Court does.
Got you.
Okay, and is there any, can we reach out to the sheriff? Because like I said, I know he's mentioned in the game room regulations explicitly, and I don't think anybody else is mentioned by name as in terms of a title that has a permit, can allow the permits of
well,
game
I
rooms
don't want to
opening.
mess this up, but Chris, correct me. I think in the county regulations, the sheriff is often responsible in municipalities where they don't have the interlocal for the permitting process, or in the unincorporated areas of the county. Where in our situation, Fort Worth is holding that responsibility. All that to say, Arnaldo, I am happy to be the liaison with Sheriff Wayburn and let him know we're working on this, and it's of utmost importance. And for the Commissioner's Court, even if they don't have a role to play necessarily, they need to be aware of the problems we're having.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I hope this is constructive for everybody. I think it will be, and I would love to follow up at some point. I don't know if that's something that we can do. Do you want to schedule that soon, or is
my staff let us work on a few things, and we've got contact information. I think a lot of this can be done by phone or email. And then once we feel like we've got an action in place or have actually taken action, we can always schedule a follow-up conversation.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.